On Thanksgiving morning, I woke up to an empty house. My whole family had flown to Maui without me. I didn't cry. I called the movers. 5 days later, they were the ones screaming. Can you even imagine waking up on Thanksgiving morning, expecting the usual family chaos and the smell of roasting turkey, only to find yourself utterly, terrifyingly alone? That silent house wasn't just empty, it was a screaming void, a chilling premonition that the people I loved most had decided I simply wasn't part of their picture anymore. It was Thanksgiving morning, 9 a.m., and the first thing that hit me was the silence. You know, the kind of silence that just feels wrong. Our house, this big 5-bedroom beast, our family's very own shrine to suburban comfort, is never silent on Thanksgiving. Mom should have been downstairs already, the kitchen thick with the rich, warm scent of turkey. Dad? He'd be glued to the TV, the Macy's parade volume cranked way too high. And my siblings, Corbin and Sloane, they'd be bickering over who got to shower first. But that morning? Nothing. Just the faint, almost eerie hum of the heating system. I sat up, my tangled hair falling into my eyes, and just listened. No cabinets clinking. No water running. Not a single footstep on the stairs. Hello. My voice sounded so small, so lost in that stillness. When no one answered, a cold ripple of unease spread through me. I grabbed my phone. No messages. No missed calls. Nothing to explain this gut-wrenching wrongness. My feet hit the cold hardwood, instantly wide awake. Mom? Dad? I called out again, louder this time. The doors to Corbin and Sloane's rooms were wide open, their beds neatly made, untouched. They hadn't even slept in them. Downstairs, the kitchen was spotless. Not a single turkey thawing, no ingredients laid out for stuffing. Just my lonely coffee mug from last night, sitting in an otherwise empty sink. I walked to the front window, pulling back the curtain. My stomach dropped. The driveway was bare. All the cars were gone. My parents' sedan. Corbin's beat-up Jeep. Even the big 7-seater SUV I'd filled with gas just yesterday for our planned trip to Uncle Dean's. For a second, a ridiculous thought flashed. Maybe they just ran out for cranberries. But the house didn't feel like they'd just stepped out. It felt abandoned. Cold. I grabbed my phone again, heart hammering. Pulled up Mom's contact. Gone. Dad's number? Deleted. I scrolled frantically. Corbin. Sloane. Even Rhett, my younger brother. All deleted. What the hell? I muttered, my pulse racing. Then I remembered. Last night. Rhett, my 19-year-old brother, who still can't remember to charge his phone. Hey sis, can I check the score real quick? My phone's dead. I'd handed it over without a second thought. Clever, I guess, but not clever enough. Rhett isn't exactly a genius. He deleted the contacts, but he didn't block the numbers. I still had our call history, and honestly, I knew most of their numbers by heart anyway. But Uncle Dean's? I knew that one for sure. I typed it in. Hit call. Paced the kitchen as it rang. Hello. His voice was so relaxed, so cheerfully oblivious. Uncle Dean, it's Christa. Where is everyone? A beat of silence. Christa? Oh. You're still home. Something in his voice made my stomach drop like a stone. And then I heard it. In the background. The rhythmic sound of waves. Distant. The faint, unmistakable plucking of a ukulele. Where are you? I asked, even though I knew the answer wasn't his charming New England colonial, the one with the massive dining room table we were supposed to gather around. His voice dropped, suddenly uncomfortable. Well, your parents wanted a big surprise for their 30th anniversary. They all flew to Maui last night. My knuckles turned white as I gripped the counter. All of them. They figured you were busy with work, he stammered, clearly trying to backtrack. And, well, they didn't want you to worry about the expense. The expense. The expense for a luxury vacation they were taking with money I'd been pouring into this house for years. Before I could even respond, I heard a voice in the background. Sloane's. God, are you talking to her? I thought the plan was to just let her stay home. Uncle Dean made a shushing sound, but it was too late. I'd heard enough. Christa? He started. I ended the call. The kitchen felt even colder now, the silence heavy as I stood motionless, my phone clutched in my hand. This wasn't some last-minute prank. This was planned. Orchestrated. They deleted my contacts. They snuck out in the night. They left me behind. Deliberately. My gaze drifted to the calendar on the fridge, where I'd circled today's date and scrawled Thanksgiving at Uncle Dean's in my neat handwriting. Next to it, the list of chores I'd completed to get ready. Clean guest bathroom. Gas up SUV. Pick up wine. This wasn't a prank. This was malicious financial exclusion. They wanted a luxury vacation using the money I paid for the mortgage. And they didn't want me there. I waited for tears, for the crushing weight of betrayal to bring me to my knees. But it never came. Instead, something strange happened. A crystalline clarity washed over me. Every single moment of the last 6 years. Every check I'd written. Every bill I'd paid. Every sacrifice I'd made while my siblings just took. And took. It all snapped into sudden, perfect focus. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I just stood in the silent kitchen of a house that wasn't really mine, feeling something final click into place inside me. I was done. The phone was dead in my hand. Uncle Dean's voice and Sloane's careless complaint faded into silence, but their echoes remained, ricocheting through my mind like stray bullets. I sank into a chair at the empty kitchen table. My coffee mug from last night still sat in the sink, the only evidence anyone lived here at all. The house felt cavernous now, each empty room mocking me with its silence. 6 years. The number materialized in my mind with perfect clarity. 6 years of being the invisible pillar. 6 years of watching my paycheck disappear into this 5-bedroom monument to middle-class pretension. All while being told I was the responsible one. I was 20 when I moved back home after community college. Dad had just been demoted. The mortgage payments are temporarily difficult, Mom had explained, her eyes wide with practiced worry. Just until they get back on their feet. 6 years later, Dad's job still barely covered car insurance and his hobbies, his fishing trips, his golf clubs, his collection of vintage model cars that sat untouched in glass cases in the basement. The total mortgage? $2,800 a month. My contribution? $2,000. Theirs? $800. The math burned in my mind, bright and undeniable. I pulled out my phone, opened the calculator app, and punched in the numbers with methodical precision. $2,000 multiplied by 72 months. That's $144,000. Gone. Not invested. Not saved. Not even appreciated. Meanwhile, Corbin, 28, supposedly the entrepreneur of the family, had lived here rent-free since his $50,000 startup crashed and burned 2 years ago. $50,000 that Mom and Dad had somehow found for him, even as I was writing checks for new gutters and property taxes. And Sloane? 22, attending Riverdale Private College, her $38,000 annual tuition and sorority dues paid without question. Your sister needs to focus on her studies, Mom had explained when I'd asked why Sloane couldn't work part-time like I had. The responsible. 1. Family code for the ATM. The numbness from the phone call began to fade, replaced by something colder, quieter. Not anger. Anger would be too hot, too messy. This was something else. Something final. I was done. The words settled in my chest like a stone. Done. They left me. But they left me in the house I paid for, connected to the utilities I managed. They assumed I would just wait and keep paying. For what? The privilege of being excluded? The honor of funding Maui vacations I wasn't invited to? I didn't throw things. I didn't scream. Those reactions would give them too much power, confirm their whispered assessments that I'm too emotional or can't take a joke. Instead, I walked to my home office. It was the smallest bedroom, the one with the water stain on the ceiling that no one else wanted. I pulled open the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet and extracted a 3-inch binder, its weight substantial in my hands. 6 years of receipts. 6 years of bank statements. 6 years of warranties for appliances and electronics I'd purchased when the old ones broke down. 6 years of evidence. I carried the binder to the kitchen table and opened my laptop. But I didn't book a flight to Maui. I didn't compose an angry email. I didn't even check social media to see if they'd posted sunny photos from the beach yet. I Googled local moving companies. Immediate availability. Several options appeared, but most were closed for the holiday weekend. One company, however, advertised a premium holiday emergency move service. Their rates were double the normal price. I dialed the number. Reliable movers, this is Troy. Hi, Troy. I need to move out of my current residence tomorrow morning. Is that possible? Troy sounded surprised, but professional. Yes, ma'am, but I should warn you, our holiday rates are. That's fine, I cut in. I'll need a truck large enough for several major appliances and furniture pieces. We can handle that. 8 a.m. work for you. Perfect. I hung up and looked around the kitchen. The high-end, front-loading washer and dryer I'd bought last year after Sloan complained the old ones were gross. The 4-door smart fridge I'd purchased when the original one died during a heat wave. The $900 espresso machine Corbin and Sloan used every morning without ever buying a single bag of coffee. All in my name. All paid for with my money. They wanted to talk about expenses? Oh, we were about to talk about expenses. I opened my laptop again and searched for studio apartments within a 30-minute drive of my office. Something became available next week, but I found a complex offering immediate move-in for an additional fee. I made the call, put down the deposit, and scheduled the lease signing for tomorrow afternoon. Next, I created a detailed inventory of everything I'd purchased for this house. The 80-inch 4K TV from the living room. My $2,500 bonus from last year. The high-speed Wi-Fi router and mesh system. The new dishwasher. Item by item, I cataloged what was mine. Not in anger. Not in vengeance. In simple, cold accounting. 7 days, I thought. They'll be gone for 7 days. When they return, expecting the comfort they've always taken for granted, expecting me to have maintained their lives in their absence, they'll find something very different waiting for them. I ran my fingers over the binder, feeling the plastic cover, cool and smooth beneath my touch. 6 years of being the responsible one. 6 years of being the invisible foundation that everyone stands on but no one sees. I closed the binder. I'd been responsible long enough. The moving truck arrived at 8 the next morning. I stood in the driveway, my 3-inch binder tucked under my arm like a shield, watching 3 men in matching blue uniforms climb out. The logo on their truck read Premium Holiday Relocations. It cost me triple the normal rate. Worth every penny. Miss Kessler. The foreman approached, clipboard in hand. We're ready when you are. I nodded, opening my binder to the tab section marked Purchases. Let's start in the living room. Inside, I pointed to the 80-inch 4K TV mounted on the wall. That comes down first. The foreman raised an eyebrow at the massive screen. Nice TV. My $2,500 bonus from last March, I said, tapping the receipt in my binder. The paper was crisp, preserved in a plastic sleeve. The bracket stays. It came with the house. The men worked with practiced efficiency. One disconnected cables while 2 others carefully unmounted the TV. In less than 10 minutes, they were wrapping it in protective blankets. I moved through the house like a general, binder open, pointing out each item. This wasn't an emotional rampage. It was inventory management. The washer and dryer in the laundry room? I said, leading them down the hall. I bought them after Sloan complained the old ones were gross. I remembered her exact words. God, Christa. These machines are from the Stone Age. Can't we get something that doesn't look like it belongs in a gas station bathroom? In the kitchen, the foreman whistled at the massive stainless steel refrigerator. 4-door smart fridge. That's gonna be tricky. It's empty, I assured him. Last night, I'd thrown out everything perishable and packed the rest in coolers now sitting in my car, and I'd already disconnected the water line. They removed the refrigerator with careful precision, leaving a gaping hole in the custom cabinetry. The $900 espresso machine was next. I watched as they wrapped it, remembering how Corbin and Sloan would use it every morning, leaving their empty cups scattered around the house. Not once in 3 years had either of them bought coffee beans. That was always my job, like everything else. Wi-Fi router and mesh system, I said, pointing to the sleek devices. All 4 nodes throughout the house. The ones that powered Corbin's endless job searches and Sloane's Instagram empire. Room by room, the house emptied of everything that was mine. The movers worked quickly, professionally, asking few questions. I answered the ones they did ask with calm precision. No, that stays. Yes, that goes. Careful with that, it's fragile. By noon, the truck was half full, and the house already felt different. Hollower. Lighter. With each item that left, a weight lifted from my shoulders. The ghosts that had haunted me, expectations, obligations, guilt, seemed to fade with every empty space created. Taking a break for lunch, ma'am, the foreman told me. I nodded and walked through the quieter house while they ate in their truck. My footsteps echoed on the hardwood floors now that the area rugs, also mine, were gone. In the living room, the wall looked naked without the TV. In the kitchen, the refrigerator's absence revealed years of dust and a single magnet that had fallen behind it, a Hawaiian sunset from some previous family vacation I hadn't been invited to. This isn't destruction, I reminded myself. This is reclamation. By 4 in the afternoon, they'd loaded everything that was mine. I stood in the driveway, signing the paperwork as they secured the truck. Address for delivery? The foreman asked. I gave him the information for my new studio apartment. The lease had started yesterday, paid 3 months in advance. After they left, I returned to the house. The emptiness was jarring, but satisfying. I pulled out my phone and started recording, walking from room to room, documenting the property's condition. No damage to the walls where the TV hung. No scratches on the floors where the furniture slid out. No dents in the door frames. Evidence, just in case. In the kitchen, I opened cabinets that now held only the mismatched mugs and cheap plates my parents had before I started upgrading our home. The pantry contained just the basics: my father's sugary cereals, my mother's diet crackers, the cheap coffee no one actually drinks. Upstairs, I entered what was my bedroom. The bed remained, but the premium mattress I'd bought last year was gone, leaving just the cheap box spring that came with the house. My dresser was gone. My bookshelf was gone. I sat cross-legged on the floor, opened my laptop, and began making calls. First, to the power company. Yes, I need to cancel service at 1342 Oakwood Lane, I said, my voice steady. The account is under Christa Kessler. May I ask why you're canceling, Ms. Kessler? The representative asked. I'm moving. Simple. Truthful. I see. There will be a final reading tomorrow, and service will be disconnected by 5 p.m. Is there a forwarding address for the final bill? I provided my new address, then made the same call to the water company and another to cancel the internet service that powered our whole smart home system. Each call took less than 10 minutes. Each representative was professionally indifferent to my decision. By 6 p.m., I'd made all the calls. Every utility would be shut off within 48 hours, long before my family returned from their Hawaiian paradise. Night fell. The house was dark except for the single lamp I'd left plugged in my room. I showered in the now-empty bathroom, dried myself with the one towel I'd kept out of my luggage, and slept on a blanket on the floor of my old bedroom. In the morning, I loaded my remaining bags into my car. I'd left nothing behind that was truly mine. In the kitchen, I placed my house keys on the counter. Beside them, I stacked the new, unpaid utility bills I'd collected from the mailbox yesterday. All addressed to Mark and Brenda Kessler. All services they'd enjoyed without thought because I handled them. I took one last look around the empty house. 6 years of my life. $2,000 a month. $144,000. I locked the door from the inside, stepped out, and pulled it shut behind me with a satisfying click. In my car, I checked the time. 6 days until they returned from Maui. 6 days until they discovered what responsibility actually costs. Tick-tock, I whispered as I drove away, heading toward my new, much smaller, infinitely more peaceful home. 6 days later, the family was back. I was sitting in my new studio apartment when my phone buzzed with a notification from the Ring doorbell app, a final loose end I'd deliberately left untied. The app showed the Kesslers had returned, dragging oversized suitcases up the front walk. Their faces were tanned, their shoulders slumped with travel fatigue. Brenda clutched a pineapple-shaped souvenir. Mark fumbled with his keys. Sloane and Corbin trailed behind, still wearing their matching aloha shirts. Rhett brought up the rear, his neck ringed with a plastic lei. I took a sip of my coffee, turned the volume up on my phone, and watched. "Honey, the light switch is finicky," Brenda called as Mark finally got the door open. They disappeared inside. I counted down in my head. 3, 2, 1. "Mark? The lights aren't working." Brenda's voice filtered through the Ring's microphone, tinged with irritation. "Hang on," Mark replied, his voice growing fainter as he moved away from the door. "Let me check the breaker." A minute passed. The door remained open, spilling their conversation onto the porch where the Ring camera captured every word. "Nothing's working," Mark called back. "The power's out." "Did you forget to pay the bill?" Brenda asked, irritation sharpening. "Me? You handle the utilities." I smiled, imagining them standing in the dark hallway, jet-lagged and confused. Corbin pushed past them, phone flashlight activated. His beam swept across the living room, then stopped. "Dad?" His voice rose an octave. "Where's the TV?" The flashlight beam jerked around wildly now, illuminating empty spaces where furniture used to be. "What the hell?" Mark's heavy footsteps pounded across the floor. Sloane screamed from the kitchen. "The fridge is gone. Everything's gone." I watched as they spilled back onto the front porch, faces pale in the dying November sunlight. Brenda's hands shook as she clutched at Mark's sleeve. "Someone broke in," she gasped. "Call 911. Mark fumbled his phone from his pocket, fingers trembling as he dialed. I watched his face contort as he explained the situation to the dispatcher, describing a robbery in progress. Corbin paced the porch, his own phone gripped tightly in his hand. His brow furrowed as something occurred to him. "The Ring camera," he said suddenly. "We can check the footage." Of course, Corbin would think of that. The tech guy of the family who couldn't even launch a successful startup with $50,000 of funding. I took another sip of my coffee as I watched him tap at his phone, accessing the same app one was currently using. I knew the exact moment he found the footage from 3 days ago. His face drained of color, mouth dropping open. She took everything," he stammered. The others crowded around his phone. I could picture the video playing on his screen, me, clipboard in hand, directing the movers as they carefully loaded the 80-inch TV, the smart fridge, the washer and dryer, the espresso machine. All documented, all organized, all mine. "Christa did this?" Brenda's voice broke on my name. "But why would she? Because she's crazy." Sloane cut in. "I told you she was getting weird." Mark took the phone from Corbin, watching the footage with narrowing eyes. When he looked up, his face was rigid with fury. "She can't do this," he growled. "This is our house." I set my phone down on the coffee table of my new apartment and walked to the window. Outside, the November sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and purple. My studio was small, but the light here was beautiful. Clean. Mine. My phone started buzzing again. Not the Ring app this time, but actual calls. One after another. The same numbers over and over. No contact names attached. I picked it up and looked at the screen. 52 missed calls in the span of 10 minutes. Then the text started flowing in from my mother's number. "Christa. Call me. Where are you?" The house was robbed. I set the phone face down on the table and made myself a fresh cup of coffee. The buzzing continued, persistent as a trapped wasp, as I moved around my small kitchen. I took my time, measuring the grounds with precision, waiting for the water to reach the perfect temperature. When I returned to the window with my steaming cup, a police car was pulling up in front of my building. Behind it, my father's sedan screeched to a halt, double parking in his haste. They piled out, Mark, Brenda, Corbin, Sloane, and Rhett, a gesticulating mass of righteous indignation, as they followed the 2 officers into my building. My intercom buzzed 3 minutes later. "Miss Kessler." The front desk attendant's voice was professionally neutral. "There are police officers here asking to speak with you. They say your family is with them." I took a long, slow breath, savoring the moment. 6 years of paying for a house that was never mine. 6 years of being the invisible pillar, the responsible one, the family ATM. 6 years of swallowing my resentment as they took. And took and took. The moment had arrived. The trap I set had sprung perfectly. "Ma'am, the police are here," the attendant prompted when I didn't immediately respond. "With your family. Get." I set my coffee cup down and crossed to my desk. My hand came to rest on the 3-inch binder, filled with receipts, warranties, and bank statements. 6 years of meticulous documentation. 6 years of evidence. "Tell the policemen only they can come in," I replied. I picked up the binder, feeling its reassuring weight in my hands. I didn't rush. This moment belonged to me. The knock came at exactly 4:17 p.m. 2 sharp raps, official and unyielding. I'd been expecting this since the building manager called. "Ma'am, your family downstairs is claiming you've stolen their television and appliances." The officer's voice was neutral, professional. He was young, maybe 30, with close-cropped hair and a name tag reading, Officer Brennan. His partner, older with salt and pepper hair, stood slightly behind, watching my face for a reaction. I didn't give him one. "Please, come in," I said, stepping back from my apartment door. "I have coffee." The studio was small but immaculate. My 80-inch TV dominated one wall, the espresso machine gleamed on the counter. Everything I took, everything that was mine, fit perfectly in this space. I'd been waiting for this moment for 9 days. "Black or cream?" I asked, pouring from the carafe. "Black, thank you," Officer Brennan said, his eyes scanning the apartment. I handed him the mug, then reached for my 3-inch binder, sitting ready on the counter. Its weight was reassuring in my hands. 6 years of meticulous documentation. 6 years of receipts, bank statements, and warranties, all organized by date, item, and payment method. "This should clarify things," I said, handing him the binder. The lead officer took it, balancing his coffee in one hand. He flipped it open, frowning slightly at first, then with increasing interest as he turned the plastic-protected pages. He paused at the invoice for the TV. "This is the television they're referring to? The 80-inch 4K? "Yes," I replied, "purchased with my year-end bonus, $2,500 plus tax." He nodded, flipping more pages. His finger traced down a highlighted bank statement, then stopped at a warranty card with my name printed clearly on it. He found the bill of sale for the fridge, paused at the washer and dryer documentation, and raised an eyebrow at the espresso machine receipt. The older officer leaned in, murmuring something I couldn't hear. Officer Brennan nodded, then closed the binder. "Everything appears to be in your name, Miss Kessler," he said, handing it back. His eyes met mine, and I saw something shift there, a reassessment. "Ma'am, do you want us to file a harassment report on your behalf?" The question hung in the air between us. 6 years of silent contribution, 6 years of being the responsible one, the ATM, 6 years of watching Corbin waste $50,000 on a startup that never started up. 6 years of Sloane's private college tuition and sorority dues being paid without question, while I covered mortgage payments that should have been my parents' responsibility. "No," I said finally. "That won't be necessary." He nodded, understanding in his eyes. "We'll take care of it. Thank you for the coffee." I didn't follow them to the door. I didn't need to watch what happened next. Through my open window, I heard the commotion 3 floors down. My father's voice, rising in indignation. My mother's tearful protests. "It's a civil matter," Officer Brennan's voice carried up clearly. "She has provided documentation of ownership for all items in question. You need to leave the property now or be cited for trespassing." Silence followed, then the slam of car doors. I closed my window. 3 weeks later, I was pushing my cart through the produce section of Greenway Market when I spotted them. Corbin and Sloane, huddled near the organic apples, scanning the store, clearly waiting for me. I considered abandoning my half-filled cart, but something hardened inside me weeks ago hadn't softened. I pushed forward. Sloane spotted me first, her eyes narrowing. At 22, she looked older suddenly, the privilege and certainty drained from her face. "This isn't funny, Christa," she hissed as I reached for a bag of Honeycrisp apples. "Mom is crying every day. You need to fix this." I placed the apples in my cart, moving past her without response. Corbin stepped into my path. His usually perfect hair was uncombed, his designer shirt wrinkled. "Just turn the internet back on," he said, desperation edging his voice. "How am I supposed to apply for jobs? You've gone too far." I looked at my 28-year-old brother, really looked at him, the failed entrepreneur, the eternal student, the perpetual child. "You're 28, Corbin," I said, the words falling like stones between us. "Get your own Wi-Fi." I pushed my cart past them, their protests fading behind me. The weight of the binder wasn't in my hands anymore, but I felt lighter all the same. 2 months later, a manila envelope arrived at my door. Inside, a summons to small claims court. They were suing me for $5,000 in emotional damages and stolen property. My mother's signature on the complaint form was shaky but determined. They tried everything else. This was their last stand. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, with worn wooden benches and fluorescent lights that buzzed overhead. My parents sat across the aisle, not looking at me. Corbin and Sloan weren't here. Perhaps they couldn't be bothered to wake up in time for the 9 a.m. hearing. Kessler versus Kessler, the clerk called. We approached the bench. My father spoke first, a carefully rehearsed speech about family obligations and property rights. He mentioned the house, their house, and how I abandoned them without warning. He talked about the difficulties they'd faced without proper appliances, about the emotional toll, about my theft of family items. When he finished, the judge turned to me. "And your response, Miss Kessler?" I didn't speak. Instead, I placed my 3-inch binder on his desk. The sound it made was final, definitive. He opened it, frowning slightly at first, then with increasing interest as he turned the pages. 5 minutes passed in silence as he reviewed bank statements, receipts, and utility bills in my name. "Mr. Kessler," he said finally, closing the binder. "These items appear to be legally purchased and owned by your daughter. Furthermore, I see evidence here that she contributed $2,000 monthly toward your mortgage for 6 years while living in your home. Is that correct?" My father shifted uncomfortably. "Well, yes, but... And you're claiming she stole property that she herself purchased?" "It was for the family," my mother interjected. "She can't just take it." The judge's expression hardened. "Mrs. Kessler, I suggest you not speak out of turn." He turned back to my father. "This case is dismissed. And Mr. Kessler, I would caution you about bringing frivolous claims to this court. There are penalties for perjury." The gavel came down with a crack that echoed through the small courtroom. My parents didn't look at me as they left. I gathered my binder and walked out alone into the cold air. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. For months later, I'm sitting on the small balcony of my studio apartment. The air is cold against my skin, but I don't mind. I wrap my fingers around a steaming mug of coffee, the expensive kind Corbin used to. Drain from my machine without ever buying a replacement bag. My apartment isn't much, 400 square feet that would fit inside the Kessler family living room with space to spare. But every inch of it is mine. Every utility bill has only my name on it. The silence here isn't the hollow absence of people who should be present. It's peace, earned and protected. Uncle Dean called last week. He waited until he knew I'd be home from work, his voice careful when I answered. "The house is gone," he said without preamble. "Foreclosed after 3 months. They couldn't make the payments." I took a sip of tea, letting the information settle. "Where are they living now?" 2-bedroom rental across town. Mark and Brenda took the master. Rhett's on the couch. Sloan and Corbin are sharing the 2nd bedroom. He paused. Sloan had to leave Westlake. She's at community college now. Westlake University. $45,000 a year in tuition alone. Sorority dues on top of that. All while I quietly transferred $2,000 to my parents' account every month for 6 years. "Christa, they're really struggling," Uncle Dean said, his voice dropping into that guilt-inducing register families perfect over generations. "Did they ask you to call me?" "Not exactly, but then they're not struggling enough," I replied, surprised by my own steadiness. "They'll figure it out. They're adults." The consequences arrived like dominoes falling. The 2-bedroom apartment. Sloan's transfer. My father having to find an actual full-time job for the first time in 15 years. My mother selling her jewelry on Facebook Marketplace. Reality crashing down on people who thought they could fly forever on someone else's wings. I take another sip of coffee, watching the sun climb higher. My phone buzzes with a notification. LinkedIn. I tap the screen. Corbin Kessler has sent you a message. I open it with mild curiosity. Hey sis. Hope you're doing well. Listen, I've got an interview at Meridian Tech next week. Any chance you could be a reference? You know how reliable I am when I put my mind to something. I stare at the message, my finger hovering over the screen. 28 years old, and still convinced the world owes him a cushioned landing. I click ignore, then block his profile for good measure. For months ago, I woke up in a cold, silent house, abandoned by the people who should have been there. I remember standing in that kitchen, the moment everything crystallized, the soft click of realization like a lock turning. Now I sit in my own space, smaller, but infinitely more honest. My bills are reasonable because I only pay for what I need. My shelves hold books I actually read. My refrigerator contains food only I eat. People ask if I ever feel guilty. Former coworkers who heard through the grapevine, the few friends who know the whole story. They want to know if I wonder whether I went too far, if I think about my family struggling in their cramped apartment while I sit here with my expensive coffee maker and my quiet mornings. I take a final sip, letting the rich flavor linger on my tongue. No, I don't. For the first time in my life, the silence is actually mine.